We are graphing. All right. So you should try this first, right? But we're going to go through it together if you need it. Cosine, what are the things I look for? So I need to know the amplitude. That's the size. The period. So it'd be 2 pi and we divide by 4. That tells you how long one pattern is. The phase shift. Negative pi over 2 divided by 4. So that's negative pi over 8. And then midline, there's nothing adding or subtracting here, so there's no vertical shift, so the x-axis is the middle of the wave. All right, next, we start at the phase shift. So at negative pi over 8, we find that. That's right here in the middle. And then we go to the top of the wave. So find here, we're negative pi over 8, and go to the top. Then I go 1 period, which is pi over 2. So pi over 2 is like 2 over. So from here, if I go 2 over, it's going to be in the middle. And that begins and ends 1 period. Exactly in the middle, it'll be at the bottom of the wave. And I'm just going to focus in on those points and wave from the top to the bottom, from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to count 1, 2, and I'm going to count 1, 2. 1, 2, and 1, 2. And then I'm going to connect this wave together. I'm going to go bottom to the top, bottom to the top. I'm going to keep going. And I drop. All right, let's keep practicing together. Number 2 is cotangent. And so the period for cotangent's pi. Nothing's changed that. And there's no phase shift, no vertical shift. There's no amplitude for it, but this 3 will come in when I graph. I need to know that cotangent starts with an asymptote. So I'm going to start with an asymptote. And then at pi, we'll end 1 pattern, 1 period. And then I'm going to go another pi to the right. Now, exactly in the middle between that is going to be a point of inflection. So at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Exactly in the middle here, I'm going to go to 3. That's what that 3 does. And it curves up to the left and then go to negative 3. And it curves down to the right. So to 3 and to negative 3. Perfect. And you graphed it. Number 3. I want to graph tangent. So the period is pi, but we're going to divide by 2. There is a phase shift here, so it's negative pi over 2 divided by 2, which is negative pi over 4. We have no midline change, and this 4 will do as we graph. So these are the 2 I'm going to start with. So this is where I start at negative pi over 4, and tangent starts with a middle point. So our period is pi over 2. So if I start at 0, that's just 2 to the right. So from here, I go 2 to the right, 2 to the right, 2 to the right, 2 to the right. And then in the middle between those are going to be asymptotes. Next, I need to know that tangent smiles to the right and frowns to the left. So that's where the 4 comes in. So in between the middle point and the asymptote, I'm going to go to 4, and it curves up to the right and then down to the left. So 4 and negative 4. Skinny little thing. Perfect. All right, cosine, period, that's 2 pi divided by 3. The phase shift, we don't have a phase shift or mid shift, so that's the amplitude, and it's 2. So those are the only thing. So I'm going to start at 0. It starts at the maximum, at 2. And then I have to find 2 pi over 3, which is right here in the middle between pi over 2 and 3 pi over 4. So there it is. So like 2.5. So if I follow that along, if I go 2 pi over 3 and 2 pi over 3, I get 4 pi over 3. Somewhere here. And another 2 would be 6 pi over 3, which is 2. So those are my top points. In the middle, it's going to go down to -2. So in the middle, it's going to go down to -2. And I'm going to draw my wave. It's a little bit of an awkward angle with a scale to actually see it. We'll do our best. All right, this one will be a little bit easier to graph. Sine, so the amplitude is 4 and the period would be 2 pi, but we divide by 2, that gives me 1 pi. So sine starts in the middle, and pi is the end of one. And that means 2 pi is the end of another one. Exactly in the middle is also going to be a middle point. And now in between here we go up to 4, and in between here we go down to -4. So up to 4 and down to -4. And then draw your graph. 6, cosecant. No amplitude. The period would be 2 pi. Instead of dividing, we're going to multiply by 3. So 1 period is 6 pi. And this tells me where the vertices are. So cosecant starts with an asymptote. And then at 6 pi, it will end one pattern. 12 pi will be another one. Exactly in the middle at 3 pi is going to be a vertex. Sorry, 3 pi is going to be another asymptote. So cosecant starts with 3 asymptotes. And then in the middle here at 1.5, we go to 3, and it folds up. And then I go to -3, and it folds down. So again, 1.5. Get my grumpy old man here. See my grumpy old man? Turn the page. All right, I want to graph tangent. So the period would be 1 pi, but I'm going to multiply times 2. So it starts at 0, and then at 2 pi, and then at 4 pi. Exactly in the middle between them will be an asymptote. And then in the middle here, I'm going to go up to 3. And then in the middle here, I go down to -3. So 2 pi, make sure I got this. So 4. Asymptote is following the pattern to 4, 3, 3, and I curved it. Perfect. All right, cosecant. This one has a few things to it. So the period is 2 pi times 3, which is 6 pi. We do have a phase shift, so it's going to be -pi/2 times 3, so that's -3 pi/2. Our midline is 0, and this tells me where the vertices are. So at -3 pi/2, we'll have a vertex. So that's -1.5. Oh, over here. So there's 1. There's 2. So -1.5. Say that's -pi. Should have had it on the graph there. It's 6 pi. So if I start at 0, it's just 6 to the right. So from here, if I go 6 to the right, it's in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. And again, if I fit 1, 2, 3, 4, no. All right, so now 3. So 1, 2, 3. That's going to be another asymptote. And then in the middle, between here and here, so 1.5 and 1.5, right here in the middle, is going to be a vertex at 3, and it folds up. And then one at -3, and it folds down. And there's the pattern. So if I go here, 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. And this one folds up. There's my grumpy old man again. Number 9. Cotangent. Doesn't have an amplitude. So the period is pi divided by 2. It does have a phase shift, so it's negative pi over 2 divided by 2, which is negative pi over 4. So cotangent starts with an asymptote at negative pi over 4. Go back to 0. Pi over 2 is 2 to the right. So from here I go 2 to the right, and that completes one pattern. So I follow that pattern all the way across. Then in the middle are our points of inflection. And then it's going to go to 2 and negative 2. Oh, cotangent. Sorry. So 2 to the left and 2 to the right. Negative 2 to the right. So again, positive 2 to the left and negative 2 to the right. Perfect. Number 10, secant. So the period is 2 pi times 2, so that's 4 pi. We do have a phase shift, positive 3 pi over 2 times 2, so the 2's cross out, and it's 3 pi. And this 2 tells me where the vertices are. So we're going to start at 3 pi, and then we're going to start at 2. So at 3 pi and 2 is a vertex, and then at 6 pi would be the same thing. Exactly in the middle, so that would be, wait a second, 3 pi, we have to count 4, so that would have been at 7 pi. Exactly in the middle would be 2 over, would be at the bottom. And then in the middle there will be an asymptote. Again, 2 and negative 2. The ones below fold down and the ones above fold up. And you have your graph. Cosine. We have an amplitude of 3 and a period of 2 pi times 3, which is 6 pi. And a phase shift of positive pi over 2 times 3. So that's 3 pi over 2. This is where I start with a maximum of the wave. So I go here and then the top of the wave. So find 1.5 and go to the top of the wave. And there we are. The period is 6 pi, so that's 6 to the right. So from here, in the middle, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 1, 2, 3, down to negative 3. Now in between those, so if I go 1.5, I go 1.5, and now I have the points I need. That's enough. And you've drawn your picture. Number 12, secant. All right, so there's just a shift here. So the period is at 2 pi, but it starts at negative pi over 2. So at negative pi over 2, which is over here, it's going to start with, and you don't see it, but it's 1. So at negative pi over 2, it'll start at 1. And then we count, so 2 pi is how many to the right? So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There it is. And then exactly in the middle. And then in between those. And then I have my pattern. And then the upper ones fold up and the lower ones fold down. And you've drawn your picture. Right, turn the page. Cotangent. So there's no phase shift. So the period would be pi, but we're going to multiply times 3, so it's 3 pi. So cotangent starts with an asymptote. And then at 3 pi, it will end. And then in the middle, exactly in the middle, which is at 1.5, at 3 pi over 2, will be a point of inflection. And then we go 4, so find the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 1.5. Go to 4, and it goes up to the left, and then 1.5 to negative 4. That's the pattern. and then down. Perfect. Number 14, cosecant. So the period would be 2 pi, but we're going to go times 3, so that's 6 pi. The phase shift is negative pi over 2, but we're going to multiply it times 3, so it's negative 3 pi over 2. So negative 3 pi over 2 is way off our graph. It's way over here. It's a little bit confusing to have that. But if I add this 6 pi to it, that's to the right. So negative 1.5. So here's 1 and there's 2. So negative 1.5 is here. And then 6 pi, we're going to count 6 to the right in the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Count back 3 in the middle. 1, 2, 3. So those are my asymptotes. And then in the middle between them will be the point of inflection. So it's at 2, at negative 2, and at 2. And there's your graph. Tangent. You can press pause and try it, or you can just keep working with me. So the period is 1 pi times 2. That's 2 pi. And the phase shift, we're starting positive pi over 2 times 2. So the 2's cross out, and it starts at pi. So tangent starts at pi, right there. And then 2 pi would make this 3 pi. And then exactly in the middle would be an asymptote. And again, the 2 in the middle will go to 2 and go to negative 2 and go to negative 2. There we go. 16. Cosine has an amplitude, has a period, so it's 2 pi times 2, which is 4 pi. Has a phase shift, which is negative pi over 2 times 2, which is negative pi. And no midline, it's 0. So cosine starts at the top, so at negative pi, somewhere here, it starts at the top, which is 4. And then we count for the period 4 pi from negative pi, so that's going to be 3 pi. And then exactly in the middle, it'll be down to negative 4. And then that's the pattern. And then graph it. Number 17, amplitude is 3. The period is 2 pi divided by 2. The phase shift is positive pi over 2 divided by 2, which is pi over 4. So start at pi over 4, and sine starts in the middle. And then add pi to it. That's the beginning and end, and then the middle. And then follow that pattern across. The first two we're going to go up to 3, and then down to negative 3, and then up to 3, and so on. And you graphed it. Cosecant has no amplitude. Period is 2 pi divided by 2. That's pi. And the phase shift is negative pi over 2 divided by 2, which is negative pi over 4. So start at negative pi over 4. Starts with an asymptote. The period is pi, which is 4 to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 2, and those are all the asymptotes. So now I have a pattern that I'll follow. In between the first two, it goes up to 3, and then fold it down to negative 3. And negative 3 again. Done. All right, turn the page. Sine. Amplitude's 2, period. 2 pi divided by 4, which is pi over 2. No phase shift. So sine starts in the middle. So in the middle, and then at pi over 2, and then again in the middle, and then it goes up to 2, and then down to negative 2. And we're going to follow that pattern across. That's enough. Number 20. Period is pi for cotangent times 2, so it's 2 pi. The phase shift's positive pi over 2 times 2. The 2's cross out, so this tells me where I'm starting. So cotangent starts with an asymptote, so at pi we start with an asymptote. Then the period is 2 pi, so pi plus 2 pi is 3. And exactly in the middle there is a point of inflection. And then we go up to 3 on the left, and then down to 3 on the right. Done. All right, 21. The amplitude is 4. The period is 2 pi divided by 4. The phase shift is negative 3 pi over 2 divided by 4. And that's where we're going to start. So find negative 3 pi over 8 compared to pi over 2. Start at 4. Pi over 2 is 2 to the right. And in the middle, and it continues. That's enough. 22. The period is 2 pi divided by 2. The phase shift is negative pi over 2 divided by 2. So we're going to start with negative pi over 4 and an upper vertex at 3. And then we're going to go pi to the right. Exactly in the middle will be a lower vertex, and in between those will be asymptotes. And there's the pattern to follow. Upper ones fold up, lower ones fold down. We have no amplitude here. Period is 2 pi times 2. That's 4 pi. We don't have a phase shift. So secant starts at 0 and 3, and then at 4 pi would be the same point up there. Exactly in the middle would be down to negative 3. And in the middle of those would be asymptotes. And then follow that pattern. The upper ones will fold up, the lower ones will fold down, and you get my grumpy old man again right there. 24. Tangent, the period starts with pi times 3, so that's 3 pi. And then the phase shift is negative 3 pi over 2 times 3. That's negative 9 pi over 2, which is like negative 4.5. But I see negative 9 pi over 2. Geez. So that's way over here off my graph. And then you add 3 pi to it. So let's do that. What's negative pi over 2 plus 3 pi? So get common denominators. And I get 9 plus 6, which is negative 3 pi over 2. Still off my graph. So I'm going to add again another period, which is 6 pi over 2, and I get 3 pi over 2. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to start at 3 pi over 2, and it starts in the middle. And then the period is 3 pi, and so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, exactly in the middle, 1, 2, 3. And then it goes up to the right through 1, down to the left through -1. And you have your graph. A little tricky, right? Is that it? I want more graphing. I went through it all. Mr. G Math, over and out. Thank you for practicing with me, having a great attitude, trying your best. Keep talking to me so you get more comfortable graphing. Till next time.